Thank you, Mr. Attorney General, for being here. I listened with interest to your opening statement, and I have to say I'm concerned that your actions are speaking louder than your words, especially when you say there's not one set of laws for Democrats and another for Republicans. My constituents and many Americans are watching your actions, which are speaking louder than your words, when it comes to, there really is a crisis of confidence in this country in your department being created by the dual treatment of American citizens depending on their viewpoints or their political positions or their political offices. Whether, you know, as your department is currently prosecuting a former president for handling classified documents, your office, and I'm assuming you personally, declined to take action against President Biden for his willful mishandling of classified documents. I appreciate you making the report of Special Counsel Robert Hur public, as was done historically with every other special counsel. Did you review the report prior to its release?
Before I released it, yes, I read it before
Okay.
I released it, yes.
Did you approve of the recommendation? Obviously, you approved of the recommendations because you have it within your power to prosecute, correct?
I'm not going to comment or editorialize on the special counsel's report. I promised I would release it. I did release it. The report speaks for itself. The special counsel sat for something like 5 hours worth of testimony on the subject, and any question about results he reached could have been asked. And
so you won't say whether you concur with the conclusions?
I will say, as I said at the time it was released, that I was not going to editorialize or comment on the report. I think that's inappropriate for an attorney general.
So you won't agree that Biden would have come across to a jury as a sympathetic, well-meaning elderly man with a poor memory?
I've said before, and I'll say again, with respect to the report, that it's improper for the Attorney General to editorialize.
You've talked about
I take that separately from the question you're asking, and if you're asking me about my own observations about the President.
No, you've testified to that fact, and I heard
I
you
have
the first time.
complete confidence in the President.
Have you ever seen evidence of impairment in your meetings with the President?
I'm sorry. I testified, and I'll repeat again what I just said.
Well, that's different than my question.
Well, I have seen the President effectively guide the members of the department, of his cabinet and his military through.
But you won't say you've ever seen any impairment on his part?
The President has no impairment. The President.
You've never seen any?
I don't know how many ways I can say this.
Okay.
I have complete confidence in the President, and I reject your characterization.
Okay. Let's talk about the audio recordings of Special Counsel Hur's interviews with President Biden's ghostwriter, Mark Swaniker. You're in possession of those, correct?
Justice Department is possession of them.
Has the White House been permitted access to those recordings?
I don't know what Mr. Hur provided, but I expect that the answer is yes.
So they have access. Let me let you know, well, maybe you're aware, how many times the Judiciary Committee has asked for those documents, asked for those recordings?
I know that the Judiciary Committee has asked. We have sent a letter explaining our position with respect to the recordings.
3 times.
We have provided transcripts of the recordings. Mr. Hur has testified about his observations during his interviews. These are interviews of a witness. It is a longstanding practice of the Justice Department to keep these kinds of documents confidential in order to not chill future investigations.
Confidential, but you provided copies to the White House.
They're this is the witness, the witness's own.
Do you normally provide
interviews.
Witnesses in investigations access to their recordings of their interviews?
Sometimes we do and sometimes we don't, but here there are, as you well know, there are privileges to be with respect to national security and other information that were addressed in those recordings and in the interviews. The transcripts themselves had to be cleared through an interagency process. You know that because we said that in the letter to the committee.